So, I wanted to talk about something that, while actually interesting and innovative for a while, has now become an insufferable part of acting, and that is method performing. You see, back in the early days of film, everyone spoke like a fucking goofball with exaggerated vocal tones and facial expressions.
Arnie, you're through. You hire these mugs, they missed, now you're through. If you ain't out of town by tomorrow morning, you won't never leave it except in a pine box.
Well, obviously no one was talking at first, but you get the idea. I mean, fair enough. It was a new art form and actors and creatives were still working on how stage performing could translate to this new medium. And as the years went on, they started perfecting the craft of pretending. Then Marlon Brando showed up with some ideas that he got from Stanislavski and made everyone feel like a dick when he decided that the key was just, being normal and acting like a real person. A trait that would not continue in his career, mind you, or personal life either for that matter.
Thanks for joining us. Say goodnight, Marlon.
Good night. Don't forget Salicornia.
The idea with method acting is that basically up until it was popularised, screen acting was for the most part action-based. When he picks up the whiskey glass, the thought process is, I say the line and sit in the chair. How do I make that seem as natural as possible? The method actor instead will make this sequence emotion-based, the idea being that they put themselves fully into the character and inhabit the life of the person to become as close to the emotional core of that individual as they possibly can, so that they aren't simply just waiting on a cue, but naturally want to pick up the glass and need to sit in the chair. In layman's terms, you can't convincingly portray a sewer worker if you've never been knee-deep in some shit, and the man who took that torch from Brando to go on and become the poster boy for method acting is Daniel Day-Lewis. Now, I could sit here all day and talk about my mixed feelings when it comes to the method of Daniel Day-Lewis, but there is no denying that it's fucking work. As an actor, he is simply incomparable to anyone working today. The behind-the-scenes stories and creation of his characters have become almost as iconic as the characters themselves. This dude gave himself pneumonia for Gangs of New York due to his insistence on only using era-appropriate clothing, medicine, and food the whole fucking time. Not just when he was needed on set, mind you, the dude lived it. He lived as a paraplegic for My Left Foot. He insisted everyone call him Mr. President or Lincoln on the set of Lincoln. Again, working and living with era-appropriate accommodations, clothing, food, utensils. I mean, I don't know how he rationalizes the fact that he has a fucking $100,000 state-of-the-art camera in front of his face, and I'm not sure that boom mic is the same brand that Lincoln used, but anyway, I'm sure he figures his way around that in his own head. I'm actually here to talk about what I think are the most hilarious and pathetic attempts from actors to try and be taken seriously as artists, while also touching on why I think method acting has become unviable, a destructive force of evil, poisoning the minds of our performers and their audience alike. Speaking of desperate to be taken seriously, let's start with Shia LaBeouf. You feel like if he just embraced his goofy Disney child starness, then he would be okay. As it is though, he's an insufferable douchebag whose desperate attempts to be perceived as an edgy, interesting artist have left him more of a meme than his role in the Transformers films alone ever could have. His art projects aside, on the set of that Brad Pitt tank film Fury, he fell victim to the modern idea of method acting that pain equals talent. Extreme pain and emotions are much easier to perform than subtle pain and subtle emotion. It really isn't that creatively taxing to get attacked by a guy in a bear suit or flung off of buildings. It takes much more consideration and preparation to show understated small emotion. But I digress. To truly get inside the mindset of his character, Shia did a bunch of stupid shit that was supposed to help him get inside the mind of someone actively fighting in a war, including giving himself a cut on the cheek and pulling some teeth. Oh, and not bathing for a few days because, soldiers don't bathe, I guess, and are just constantly pulling their own teeth. Speaking of teeth, Jamie Foxx had his filed down so that he could play a homeless person in The Soloist, because of course, as we all know, homeless people have chiseled teeth. Apparently that's a distinguishing feature of the homeless that I was just never aware of, the chiseled teeth aspect, as well as the pretty messed up misconception that pain equals talent. The most common way that method acting has presented itself to us in recent times is through the breakdown and destruction of beautiful people. We want to see attractive, handsome, stunning, beautiful people made fat, thin, ugly, pathetic. Jared Leto is the very definition of a how's my hair actor. When presented with a script, I have no doubt that the first thing he thinks is exactly what hair and beard combination he's going to go for with this one. I've sat with the biggest smile on my face the last 2 years as the world is seemingly caught up as to how shitty this dude is. Not only as a performer, but as a human being. His pathetic method rap sheet might be the longest of any I can think of. Right, let's see. He got fat for a shit film that he was shit in that nobody saw.
Do you ever gain weight for a role, and why or why not?
Well, you know, it's a good question. Would I ever gain weight for a role? I gained 67 pounds for a little film that obviously you didn't see called Chapter 27. But, you know, my mom and my brother saw it.
He took a page out of Daniel Day-Lewis's book for Morbius. Yes, folks, Jared Leto went method for Morbius, the film about the superpowered human vampire foil to Spider-Man. He fucking found a way to fully inhabit this vampire character by forcing the crew to wheel him to the bathroom because he's in a wheelchair for part of the film. Oh yeah, and they had to carry him in there as well. I mean, come on mate, there's just no need. Imagine being a minimum wage crew member carrying this perfectly able, handsome, self-entitled millionaire to the toilet bowl. I'd have fucking dunked his head in it. For House of Gucci, he seemingly did no other research but play old Super Mario games.
Never confuse shit with chocolato. They may look the same, but the taste very different.
Infamously on Suicide Squad, he spent entirely too much time worrying about the silly setup, backstage antics to promote the film and convince everyone he was crazy and losing his mind and losing himself in the character, which, I mean, considering the circumstances around the last guy that played the Joker, I mean, probably in bad taste if you ask me. But once again, I digress. He did all this rather than, you know, creating an actual character that people could be interested in and relate to. But anyway, then there's the just kind of half-assed publicity stunt side of things, you know, stories to tell the press and journalists to show just how serious you took all this shit. The Dwayne Johnson Rock once really had to pull out his acting chops when he played a man with hair in 2014's Hercules. For a scene where Hercules has to break out of some chains, he insisted on using real chains, you know, just to get into the mindset, causing his arms and his wrists and his skin to become really damaged. And, you know, it's just as well because I was starting to lose my willing suspension of disbelief during that part, and the use of those real chains in that scene really pulled me back into that film, you know. Joaquin Phoenix was in a film called The Master. In it, he has a clenched jaw. So, of course, simply acting like your jaw is clenched is a bullshit pussy amateur move. I mean, this is the fucking star of Brother Bear, and it's all about love you're talking about here. So, of course, he had his fucking jaw wired shut instead of, you know, just talking out the side of his mouth. That's it for part one, but to entice you for part two, I'll leave you with what might be one of the most famous behind the scenes stories in film history. For Marathon Man, Dustin Hoffman was due to star in a torture scene where he'd been awake for 72 hours. He actually did stay up for 72 hours, and he went out for a run just before the scene, arriving exhausted, disheveled, sweaty, and not in the best frame of mind at all. Laurence Olivier asked him what in the actual fuck he was doing. Dustin explained his artistic mindset in finding the real emotional core of the scene so that he can embody the character and actually emotionally respond to what's happening, to which Laurence Olivier responded, "My dear boy, why don't you try acting?"